It took place in the capital of Mongolia in Ulaanbaatar, and it was the second global, or perhaps the third global event actually of the Zeitgeist movement that had simultaneous translation in English for an international audience. The thing is that this point I'm making will actually go into the part of the Zeitgeist Day of 2022 for this year. The people that were responsible for helping with the English translation were from TZM Ukraine because of the current war going on in the country. It is been very heavily postponed to have the edited videos with the better English synchronized subtitles to be uploaded, but they are being reworked on once again as of now. So we're hoping to have this done within sometime by the end of this month or hopefully sooner. We will see where, yeah, hopefully there will be no more disturbances with that. Um, yeah, so that will be really cool to finally see that because I know some people weren't exactly sure about um, I guess they just didn't know, for example, that there was a where the event was happening, of course, with the whole pandemic thing still in a really large scale and still is. But I mean, there was another lockdown globally going on at the time when the event happened, and I think some people just missed out on the details of how to see the live stream. So yeah, I'm pretty. That's pretty cool that we're gonna have a really professionally cut video, and everybody can see the content and stuff going on at the event finally. Moving on to this year's Global Zeitgeist Day. So I'm not gonna say too much about it, except for that if anybody following, should have known that the global this would have been the 14th annual global main event from the Zeitgeist movement. It would have been held in Kiev, Ukraine, the capital of the country. And again, due to the current war that the Russian Federation has declared on the country, that's prevented a little setback in hosting the event. The Ukrainian branch of the Zeitgeist movement is still going to continue holding the event, however, but it's going to be held in another country. There was supposed to be a announcement being made of this, but again, because of the circumstances of the war and that there are people being they're moving around all over the country or over the continent of Europe, it's been a little bit difficult to be very consistent with a time plan at the moment. So basically, yeah, um, look forward to at some point very soon as well having a actual update on where the event's going to take place and program speakers, etc. And yes, so I think one thing that I really want to mention that is extremely important for all of us, it regards to both this coming global event and also for the Zeitgeist movement in general. So it's really essential to basically mention this part about, you know, this is a really weird thing to talk about, especially for those that are not, um, you're not from Ukraine, you're not from Russia or from Europe actually. You may not be able to understand this very well, or it will just sound just very abstract and weird. Normally, this flag event of the Zeitgeist movement we usually recognize as Z Day, which has been just this kind of like it's just like a little bit of a it's a shortening of the name Zeitgeist Day, which is the actual official or the full name of the event. Zeitgeist Day, so the word Zeitgeist, spirit and the spirit of the times of culture and the climate of an era, etc. And having a day that basically focuses on that climate and things going on in the world and whatnot, and focusing on that and talking about how do we shift from this zeitgeist, literally moving from this zeitgeist to the next one. And so that's basically how we came up with that name, Zeitgeist Day. and so that way we can basically talk about these kinds of things. So we say the word Z-Day a lot, and the problem is that um, this, again, just to cut to and get to my point, the problem is that the logo Z, the letter Z right now is currently being very occupied by Russian military forces and by pro, you could say. You can say by Russian warlords right now that are taking a very active part in um, uh, the the attack strategies and also warmongering around Europe, etc. So basically, uh, the thing is that this letter Z, if you look anywhere in what's going on in the war right now in Ukraine, you'll be looking at, for example, armed Russian personnel that have this Z painted on their cars, on their tanks, their airplanes, or even wearing badges that have the letter Z on it. I'm not sure exactly what the entire background of this is, but when they have this, it usually is represented by violent intentions or purposes. People that are meaning to um, kill their so-called enemies or Ukrainians in this circumstances. So what does this mean? This has basically led to the letter Z or things that are being represented by the um, how should I say, kind of like a standalone or some kind of a very if there's anything that has like a very big emphasis on the letter Z or whatever, it can cause a lot of problems. It's basically banned right now in Ukraine. You can land up in jail immediately if you're found walking around representing something that has a big letter Z on it. It could be anything from anything that what we do by the Zeitgeist movement, Z Day. It could be just a clothing brand. It could also be the Z series phone from Samsung, which actually has led Samsung to actually remove the Z series from the market and rename it something else. So also, as I've mentioned to Andre and other friends in Germany, that it has also taken effect in other European countries, such as in Poland and in Germany. If you're caught walking around with a T-shirt that has a big Z on it, you will basically be arrested and you can wind up with a 10-year prison sentences, depending on circumstances. It is absolutely wild and really just, it's just so bizarre and strange. Like I'm not sure whatever way I can describe it at the moment. And since the Zeitgeist movement at the moment, you could even say that these Russian warlords have kind of stolen like the kind of flag nickname that we give to our main event or whatever. The thing that I want to tell everybody here in the Zeitgeist movement and also strongly on behalf of TZM Ukraine is not calling this year's event or your local event Z Day, but call it by its full name, Zeitgeist Day, just to just to avoid any misunderstandings or confusion. And just so we're also very clear, if this seems very exaggerated to you, the Russian military actually called the 24th of February, the day when they invaded Ukraine, Z Day, as a matter of fact, Dien Z in Russian. So that doesn't look very good for us when we have something very different that we want to portray and bring out to a larger public or whatever. And it's again, we've never had this problem ever before or whatever. But and I'm not trying to suggest that we can never call any of our events Z Day ever again. But just because of the no pun intended, the current zeitgeist or the climate of what's going on with the war, just calling it by its full name, Zeitgeist Day. And hopefully, when this stuff passes and we don't have a Russian far right militia that's abusing the letter Z anymore and nobody seems to care, then I think it won't matter if we use it again. But just for the sake of the movement, for your own personal safety, and for others, just try not to be pushy or trying to use it too much because there's a really big weird cultural stigma right now with the letter Z, and yeah, I that's something really important that needs to be announced to everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that update, Cliff. Would anyone like to add anything to that or comment on that? Brandon, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Thanks, Cliff, for that update. And it's ironically, you know, works out. It ironically works out because we're trying to. We've had discussions about breaking away from that, from the Z Day title of the event, anyway. And I mean, within the movement internally, people can, of course, I mean, call it that. It will continue to. The community knows it like that. Our annual, awareness event, but I feel like because there's definitely been some discussions about just calling these, annual events by the title or the theme of the event, like whatever the theme, topics of the event, that conceptual theme of the event that we're trying to convey that day. That we, and sorry for the background noise here. I'm on the street, at a cafe here on the street, but yeah, and that we call these annual events by the theme of whatever it is, and put the Z Day and stuff like internal stuff kind of more in fine print or to the back. But just thoughts, and we can move along.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Brandon. Would anyone else like to comment on the current agenda item? If not, we will move on to the next one. No? Okay. Right, so we've had the Zeitgeist Day update. We've had sorry, Cliff, you did the TZM Mongolia update. You kind of blended that one into the first agenda, didn't you?
No, actually,
Oh,
that's independent. There's something different from TZ in Mongolia.
okay, then we'll move on to that one now then.
So just on behalf that right now in Mongolia, most of them are either just waking up or still sleeping. I'm giving an update on their behalf, a really big one, as a matter of fact, that TZM Mongolia is right now in the legal procedure of making their branch a NPO in Mongolia so they can better basically function and basically have a stronger presence and a functioning body in Mongolia to further pursue activism and stuff. And I don't know exactly the exact details of how they're going about with this, with the NPO or what they're gonna do or whatever. But I know that Bayamuk, who's been running the TZM group there since the beginning, since 2008, since when the movement was founded, he's the one he's the backbone of it, and just of course he's got some. I mean, he also has the, so to say, the support and has all the people that he needs around him to make an NPO work. He understands all these mechanics with himself being a lawyer in Mongolia. So I imagine that he has a really good plan set together of how to make it work. And this is, let me just be clear to everybody. When we say that TZM Mongolia is making the NPO, it's not on behalf or for the entire movement, but it's just for the local activities in Mongolia. So, for example, when they want to have another Zeitgeist Day global event or for whatever they want to do in the future, they have an easier way of accepting updates as well as being a little bit more integrated in law and social mechanics in the establishment, so they can further expose stuff in the Zeitgeist movements and stuff like this. And so that's something we also have in Iceland. We've had in Finland. Earlier, it used to be in the United States as well, back in 2016. We also have a NPO for TZM Ukraine. Even despite war efforts, it's still active. And a part of the update that's supposed to come soon is a donations link to anybody that wants to help Ukraine or the TZM Ukraine branch. So we have this actually already in some parts of the world already, and now Mongolia is jumping on board to do the same. When it's finalized and the NPO is active, I'm sure there'll be an announcement made that we can share in the future about it. But just to let everybody know that it's happening.
Brilliant. Thank you for that update, Cliff. Right, so that has now covered our two main agenda points. Would anyone like to comment on the update that Cliff just gave?
I would.
Go for it.
Yeah, just that the long-term kind of vision of the NPO stuff is obviously it's touchy territory. We don't want financial stuff to come in and impede our collaboration, or degrade our collaboration, or degrade our quality of our message and whatnot. As so many NPOs, fall into these establishments, and we're not. Everything would be done transparently, obviously, and this is part of kind of a new step. The step TZM has been evolving to, which is to not just entirely. I mean, a lot of times in prior TZM periods, if you will, it's been about like rejecting the system, and system change, meaning to just reject the system outright. But we can't also just ignore that systems, do exist already, financially, politically, institutionally, and whatnot. And we have to engage those systems, build our financial power in that sense, and that's will only allow us, to get event spaces for far cheaper when we have an NPO status. So I definitely support that, and if done transparently, and it will. So that was just my 2 cents. Go ahead, Woody.
Great, thank you for that, Brandon. Would anyone else like to comment on that?
I would just like to throw in that exactly as Brandon said, is that it's really important that, especially for the nature of what the Zeitgeist movement represents and what it wants to carry out and stuff, that transparency has to be at the absolute top of priority, basically. And, yeah, anything with money, we understand what money is and that how corruptible it is or how corruptible it can make people, the concept and the system of it, and that's why that it requires really people that are that basically have a sound mind, a genuine heart, basically, to take on like stuff that includes these kinds of things. And so that's really important because I think I can just speak on behalf of stuff of that's happened in the past in the movement. It's either been two things. It's either been one that somebody that had some kind of like responsibility or was involved in any kind of finances in the movement did actually abuse that power or whatever, or was not being transparent, or it was the other way, is that simply there was a time when there were needs for financial or law mechanisms to be set in place to help the zeitgeist movement go forward in some direction or whatever. And then nobody wanted to make that step go forward, and people would just complain that we shouldn't use money at all, and we can't, and blah blah blah, and that, yeah, we just kind of some points like in TZM Berlin, which was the branch I was involved in fostering and cultivating for a while. I would say it basically fell apart because it reached a degree that it had so many people and so many people involved and active, but it needs to make that next step and go forward so it can actually have a stronger foothold and established presence in the city. But nobody wanted to do that step and take the responsibility. Nobody felt either confident or nobody trusted the people to do it. And TZ in Berlin is basically defunct today, unfortunately. So, I mean, I think what Baimuk is doing definitely has its risks, but he's had TZ in Mongolia for about 14 years under his belt, among a bunch of other Mongolians that have been very they've been very persistent and willing to go on with how it's been going for the past 14 years. But I think they're ready to take it to the next level. And especially, I think they feel very enthused and they feel very confident after just having a global event in their country last year. So I'm really happy that they have the guts to take this up another notch. And, I think we all support them in getting there.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update, Cliff. Would anyone else that hasn't yet spoken like to comment on the mentioned agenda items before we move on to the next part of the meeting?
Angelo, do you have anything to throw in, maybe?
Not really. Thanks anyway.
Okay, then. Well, we shall move on then. So we have a couple of discussion topics here as the next part of the agenda. The first discussion topic is priorities as a movement. And I think this one was added by Brandon. So, of course, Brandon can elaborate in a bit more detail than what I may. But I think it's around discussing, we want to kind of open the floor out to people to kind of have their input into what it is they think we as a movement should be focusing on. What should we have our attention on? And so I would like to open the floor to people with the question of what should we as a movement be prioritizing? And I don't know if Brandon wants to elaborate on that or whether we should just open it up.
Yeah, just open up.
Okay. So anybody here other than myself, Cliff and Brandon, we've spoken a bit. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think you've heard my thoughts before, so I don't know if this is like a broken record, but I think
Oh, go ahead.
I think a lot of this stuff that is done online keeps us isolated in a way that holds us back. And I think there should be more movement towards meeting people in real life if possible. I know, of course, everybody's in different places. Tristan said he's in Germany. Everyone's everywhere. But I really do feel that a lot of people just sort of sitting passively interested in the ideals of the movement, but not really connecting with people. We've lost in our isolation in our society. I feel like we've lost a very important aspect of like relationships, and this, I think, you get so much more when we have in group meetings. So maybe some way to either just facilitate local chapters, or even try to get people together. I don't know. A lot of people are probably working. One of the things I want to do at some point, I've outlined this myself separately, but I want to try to bring people under the same roof and just say, hey, let's all get together, figure out what is the way we can best put in our energy and our time to get to the future we want. And whether I go there and I'm just a cook to make the food for you guys, and that could still be tremendously helpful. Like if one person dedicated to food, one person dedicated to being the internet master, and then people are dedicated to making videos and content, and people like just sort of like have coming together, working together to get to where we want to be. But I really do believe that in-person experience is critical to it.
Andre, I would ask you, would you please reply actually, because I think you have something very interesting to bring to the table actually to something what Nathan is speaking about.
Yeah, that's right, because actually in Germany we are planning our first offline meeting since years, and we are very much looking forward to that. It will take place at the end of this month, the last weekend of April, and it will be held in Stuttgart. And I think we'll be around maybe 7 or 8 people. It's not really decided yet. since the German Zeitgeist movement is also a little scattered around at the moment, we also try to invite people from the former movement. And yeah, and we already have a plan for that date also, because we want to make new videos in the old fashion of the what was it called, Cliff? Help me. What was the word? Um, advocacy videos. You know, like in the past, one member of our group had the idea to make an actual version of these again with the current members who've been working together since more than a year now and pretty regularly, like 2 or 3 times a week. So he had the idea to make new advocacy videos in German language this time, actually, especially for the German speaking countries. And if this is going to be a success, I think it would be a good idea to do that in all the different countries again. Maybe not only in English. Of course, if you do them in English, everyone can understand them on the whole planet. But we really thought about doing that in German this time to be more, what can I say? How can I say it? To be more felt by other German speaking people. I think maybe it's easier to get through to people's hearts and emotions if it's in the mother's tongue. Also, we can speak our feelings much better in our mother's tongue. So that's why we choose to do that. And yeah, that's what we plan for this last April's weekend. And if it's gonna be successful, hopefully we will upload these videos around the time when we will also present a new homepage, but we can't tell when that will be yet. Yeah, so far from Germany.
That
That's awesome.
sounds like fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that, really.
Yeah, what I want to do ultimately is just rent like a multi-family home with like a couple dozen rooms, however many we need, and just literally bring people who are flexible enough to move into the same house and just churn out, put all of our hearts and minds and our energy together to get to where we want to be. But that's obviously more complicated because, everybody's got kids and wives and jobs and all that stuff. But
I'm gonna leave a link in response also to what Nathan just mentioned, and that is that this is exactly what Koto Co-op is doing, which was actually initiated by the TZM Finland branch. They initiated this living, ecological, sustainable, post-scarcity community a home in the eastern part of Finland, and they've been making a lot of progress with it ever since the unit has been created back in August of last year. And so I think that should be, I'm gonna put a link, and I think that'll be a good inspiration for what people or what Nathan would be looking for. We also have this starting in TZM Iceland as well, by starting a community center. It's just a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of work. Finland is a few steps ahead, but we're catching up, and we're going to do the same thing and start letting Zeitgeist Day happen on a daily basis instead of just once a year by having this community center. So it's happening. It's a domino effect. I can say that much.
that's great.
I mean, uh, so I am new. I've what do you call it? I've seen or ran into Zeitgeist. I want to say like 2008, 2009. This was like before Discord, and and that was all what I had was like learning through like videos and whatnot. And I'm like, what the heck? So when I first watched Moving Forward, I was like, what did I just watch? And it all makes sense at the same time. It's like you are like, how does one get this information? I mean, like, I was very like, that is some like next level like knowledge. Like, I was like blown away.
That's cool. So, what's your have you kept up with the movement, or what do you
I
think about it?
mean, I've recently gone on Discord. I try to Discord, but I feel like there is so much in. There's like again, like moving forward, like there's like so many like things to look at. Even by looking at that video, I'm like, if that's just the video, I wonder what the whole movement's about because I feel like there's so many alleyways, and I'm trying to figure out where to go. Because like I'm like looking at this, looking at this, looking at this. I'm like, what do I do? It's like I'm in a mind maze filled with like knowledge. I don't know if I'm up or going down. I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
that
I
never stops. It's always hurts your brain to think about this stuff. It never gets easier.
Like
yeah.
I get
uh,
the gist of like what it's all about. How it's like one of those things where you hear it and you understand it, but don't know how to say it in a way.
I
Oh,
think it.
sure. Sorry, what do you? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'll let you go, Brandon.
Just that, yeah. How do you put it into words? And when you come across ideas that before you had no way of putting into words, it's powerful. That's sorry for the street noise again here, but that films the Zeitgeist films really were able to, you know, just explain our systems in a way that people could understand in a whole new way.
So so what do they mean that in? So I think it was Doctor. What's his name? Doctor Gato. What's his name?
Gabor Mate.
Yeah, got yeah him. What did he meant when he said that the diseases were not really there or something? He went on the line saying that it was like he worded it weird, but like, I'm trying to figure out what did he meant when he was talking about diseases and like things like schizophrenia.
So currently we're kind of on a particular discussion topic, but towards the
Oh,
end of the
sorry.
meeting, we'll be opening the floor so we can have these discussions, and I think it's a great discussion to have. But I think if we focus on what our current agenda point is, and then we will come back to that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So currently what we're talking about, because I can see that we've got a couple of new people who've just jumped in. Welcome Jay and welcome Violet and who else? So that's pretty much it. But so we are currently talking about what people think our priorities as a movement should be. And we're trying to get people that perhaps haven't really expressed their views on this before to sort of step in and comment on that, because we're really trying to look for some new and different ideas.
Um, I mean, I would suggest holding like meetings like this, like in like have people come in and learn, or I would not say create like a church like environment, but like I don't know how to explain it. Like upkeeping or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's something that we certainly do. So we're really trying to figure out, is there anything else that we could be doing as well? But definitely constant communication, meeting, having interactions, having open discussions, throwing ideas around. It's all important stuff. And that's definitely something that we regularly trying to do.
I think
I mean,
Nathan's right in that live models are very important. I think if we're starting to get close to being able to develop a few live models around the place, then that's
yeah.
great. I know Malaysia have something good going at the moment as well, as far as houses go, community houses. But yeah, I've arrived late. I'd like to hear more about what's happening on that, but I'll talk to other people about that later.
Um, I looked at like the list of like what do you call it? The list of chapters, and I feel like there should be like more chapters out there.
Sorry,
Is there
did you
like
say
more?
shelters?
No, chapters
Oh,
because you
chapters.
call yeah, or like locations. Like LA has one, and I think Does England have one?
Yes, but it's not very active right now.
I don't know if we're active over here, but I mean, I go on it and no one really posts like about it. I don't know. It's like it's there. Like we have like there's like the website for like the Los Angeles uh 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 website, but I don't know if they're doing anything with that. I'm trying to look it up to see if they have any events going on, but with COVID, I feel like things are not.
I can help you with. Yeah, I can. Actually, I am in LA myself, and
Oh, really?
one. Yeah, you're speaking to the coordinator for LA, so I can talk to you.
Oh,
I've been
hi.
trying
How
to.
are you?
I've been trying to. Yeah, pleasure. I've been trying to decide on the side of things here. What do you? Because I know we want to stay on the point of things, but yeah, I mean, we've been definitely on this. Going back to the topic before about in-person meetings, definitely need to get those back going, and it's been on my mind. Of course, obviously, things are. I mean, safe as I mean they could get. I mean, things are probably going to
Yeah,
get worse again, pandemic-wise. So now is the time to meet, if anything.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if if you guys were doing meetings or not because of COVID. I know that some people are still not
Yeah,
doing meetings and
that was, I
everything.
mean, the reason why, yeah, that shut things down. But we were already a little inactive anyway. We were, so, but yeah, we definitely want to get those going again. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you two should definitely connect in PM and have a chat about that. Always good to see some networking. So, anybody else here like to chime in on the topic of what we should be prioritizing? And I think it's important to say, what should we be prioritizing now? And we're not talking about, obviously, there's lots of things that we would like to see happen, but they're kind of far off in the future. So, what specifically, as a
Like, what
movement?
do you mean, like prioritizing? Like, give us can you give me like an example, of, like what you like think about, like?
Well, as far as what we should be putting our attention, our efforts into,
Like okay, um, I'll say
I,
education.
education is definitely an important one, and Brandon is doing a lot of work to try and address that. So Brandon's definitely the one to talk to for that, and perhaps maybe Brandon will want to talk about that at some point. But we're really trying to enable people that haven't spoken much yet to speak. So anybody else who hasn't yet had an opportunity to speak, is there anything that you would like to add to the current topic?
I don't know if I'm only speaking maybe from a German perspective, but right now I have the feeling that ideas like the community center in Iceland and forming an NGO in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia are pretty good ideas because it makes the movement more touchable, more meetable, and I think maybe like someone else said before I told about the meeting that we will have in Stuttgart this month. I have the feeling that online activism is tending to get lost in the sheer masses of information that we are overwhelmed with from the internet every day. I feel like internet activism maybe isn't as effective as it was 10 years ago. But maybe that's only a German phenomena, I don't know. But that's the feeling I have. Having more like events, like things like this community center being touchable for others, being visitable, being visuable, being, yeah, touchable, feelable. Ex- yeah, having something people can actually experience. I think maybe just the offline world might be coming up at the moment.
Yeah, I think you make some very important points, and that's definitely something that we have discussed with myself, Cliff, and Brandon, and a few others on the moderation team. Is the importance of things being tangible, so that people can really physically connect with things. And by being able to physically connect with something, it enables you to really see the progress and see things moving forward. Whereas, like you say, on the internet, things can very quickly get lost in the sheer mass of information. and so I'm definitely happy to see that the Icelandic chapter and other chapters are, and the Mongolian chapter and the German chapter are putting effort into making that a reality, because I think that's definitely important. So, would anyone else like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'd like to back up what you've just said by saying that when we're thinking about what we want to do now, we really have to consider what the world's doing right now, and we appear to be coming into a time of post-lockdown, and having those tangible things, I think, is very attractive, particularly so at this time for that reason. But I think I want to add that the time, the past time where we used to think about activism separately online and in person, I think, yeah, things are getting a bit blurry at this point in time. We don't really know which way people are going to go as far as, influences and things like that. But I think we need to start thinking about activism not in terms of online and offline. I think those things need to sort of marry by default, and all our events need to be both. They really just need to have both, and it needs to be seamless. Because there are going to be people who are still, hidden away in their houses online, and living that way. And it's important for them to see that there are people out there who are gathering together in communities and doing things tangibly as well.
Definitely. I'm wondering, Adam, do you have anything to add to this? Because we've not heard from you yet. Are you there, Adam?
That might be why.
It could be. Okay. What about Angelo? Have you got anything to add to this one?
In my opinion, TZM Sweden are like the kings and queens of street activism.
Oh, Adam's just said that he would speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I really think that it's important to build grassroots support, and I think that a vehicle for doing that really could be working with different organizations that already exist, and sort of building kind of a solidarity with people that way. I know an example off the top of my head is working with food banks and other charities to sort of help people and sort of like spread awareness of the movement sort of like at the same time. There is some other ideas I have that go beyond that, but I don't think that comes into the context of priorities. But if there is, I mean, I have, I don't really have long to like to be on here. I have to go like soon, but I definitely have some ideas that perhaps another time I could discuss with you guys.
Yeah,
Love to
that's
hear it.
brilliant, Adam. Maybe we can arrange to have a meeting when you're more available.
Yeah. Can I just like say like briefly what I was going to like sort of what my idea sort of is?
Yeah, go for it.
So you have all these sort of course you have like charities and stuff like that. But you also have all these different organizations apart from TZM that share similar goals. Historically, you've had the sort of the granddad of what we of the sort of ideas we advocate for, which is the Venus Project. But then you have other organizations that have sort of popped up over time, such as I don't know if any of you have heard of the Oravana Project, which is kind of a similar to TVP, and also you have Koto Co-op, and even my fledgling project Adenia. What I'm trying to the idea I sort of have is what if we kind of had sort of a way of, because there was a something that came up in the last meeting I was in, where essentially there was something that was brought up where the TZM as a movement itself is like that you have all these different people, all these different organizations wanting to do their own sort of thing, but at the same time you have, well, at the same time what the movement needs is a sort of a unified sort of force for change. And so an idea I sort of had was to sort of, what if there was kind of a how could you say it? A kind of like a federation of sorts of like TZM affiliated organizations as
Yes,
such.
we've had this idea come past before, and it's an attractive one. I think what you're trying to say, I think, is that TZM positions itself kind of centrally between a lot of these organisations and helps them to compare notes and rub each other's backs a bit more effectively. Is that sort of where you're going with this?
Yeah, well, where I'm sort of going is that is to think of is to have like sort of kind of a solution to have a movement where people can work sort of in a decentralized way, independently with their own organizations, but at the same time, it's it's under that TZM banner, and that kind of gives us sort of like when we need to sort of a unified force for change, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's decentralized but still effective.
Go, Woody.
I was just going to say absolutely, and it's something that has definitely come up as a discussion throughout the years of the existence of the Zeitgeist movement, kind of being an umbrella for different projects and different groups, and how can we tie different movements together? Because I see so many different movements in the world. One that I've been associated with is Extinction Rebellion. And whilst Extinction Rebellion, for example, is primarily focused on the climate issue, they do share a significant amount of similarities to certain things that we advocate for, in particular system change, because obviously it's the system that's creating the damage that we see around us. So I would absolutely love to see a unification of the different movements that exist in the world. The difficulty is obviously creating a situation where those movements want to get on board and sort of presenting it in a way that's appealing to them. So definitely that's something I think we should have more conversation about, how we can go about doing that.
Yeah, and it's really sort of like a benefit of that I thought of would probably be that the ideas and the rhetoric and the movement could really sort of, if we got more involved with all different sorts of organizations, even, day-to-day organizations like charities and other like non-profits and such like that, that we could, the movement itself could like penetrate more into, everyday society, if that makes sense. It could be more visible to regular people, and if regular people see that we are working with all these different groups, all these different helpful groups, then they're more likely, we're more likely to build that grassroots support from people.
We're less likely to appear.
Sorry, Jay, you cut out then.
Sorry. Oh my God, my push to talk's giving me grief. we're less likely to appear as a rogue outlier and more likely to appear as a social and socially acceptable group of people.
Yeah, and it's kind of like because something that's happening at the moment is the Just Stop Oil protests, and something that's happened late last year is the protests lately on a road called the M25 in the UK, which is like a major road around London that was blocked by a group of protesters affiliated with the name Insulate Britain, who had some demands for like our government in terms of like heating and insulation and stuff like that. With Just Stop Oil, it's like people aren't they like blocking like an oil refinery or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the thing is, like, while some like disruptive protests and like demonstration is sometimes necessary to get some attention, like this time round, as with like Insulate Britain, like the people of the UK, as from what I've inferred from social media, like they really are like not supportive of these protesters, and I think that optics is as you know is as important as the substance that you're advocating for, and I really think that like if we was to in the ways I mentioned, if we was to build the grassroots support, then the we would then the movement would be more favorable, and that favorability would be more robust.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to have to, because I'm conscious of the time. The official part of the meeting is going to end at 10 past 10 UTC, so that's in about 7 minutes time. So we do have another discussion topic, but when the official part of the meeting ends, we can certainly come back to talking about this. So is that okay? With you, Adam, there? Or do you have a final point to make? Or
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm finding like the microphone button. Yeah, I mean like I'll be it's coming up to like Easter bank holidays. I'll have like some more free time during those days to maybe maybe one of those days I will be in voice chat and chat with some of you people. So yeah.
cool. Well, send me a private message, like when you're available or something, and we'll arrange something.
Yeah, but as they say, the 9 to 5 calls. Anyway, it's been good. I'm glad I got my ideas out there, and I've heard sort of similar things from other people in this meeting tonight, and yeah, take care all, and I'll see you later. And
Thank you.
I'll be uploading a new video tomorrow also. So
Brilliant.
Tremendous. Always look forward to your videos, Adam. Thank you very much for turning up. I'd like to have a chat to you, a better chat to you one day. Thanks. Bye.
thank you.
Yeah,
Take care.
thank you for your contribution, Adam. I'll speak soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay, so we've only got 5 minutes, so we will have to wrap up the official part of the meeting in about 5 minutes. So just quickly, I suppose we're going to have to carry the next topic into the open discussion afterwards, but I wanted to mention the next agenda point, which was critical media literacy and the importance around understanding media and how news and information is presented to us, and developing the literacy or the ability to kind of sift through the information that's presented to us so that we can actually figure out and work out what is reality and what is truth. And I think Brandon would be the best one to go to kind of elaborate a bit more on
that. Yeah, thanks. Just I think it's more and more becoming the core activist issue of our time right now. I think it's trending in the direction that people are starting to realize how much media can manipulate people and how easily we are manipulated. You know, how they play on our emotions and they find the emotions and manipulate. You know, despite facts, emotions are easier to manipulate. We're emotional creatures first, right? But we are also reasonable. So when confronted by reason, um, I tend to think we, you know, make those right decisions. But we have to be exposed to it, and you have to be trained for it. You have to be trained to reason. Yes, we are, you know, reasonably inclined as sentient human beings. It's what kind of separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom, if I could say something so cheesy. But that it has to also be trained. You know, we have to learn proper intellectual tools and media literacy, critical media literacy skills, and I think things are trending in that direction. And people just it's just basically about understanding power motives behind media and propaganda, and how talking points and narratives, you know, are framed in. These norms are fed through media, and which is not just print, you know, books, but now is in the form of videos and all kinds of, you know, media that we consume, and just giving people a way to navigate that so that we can come together, because it's weaponized. You know, media is weaponized and keeps us divided, and we have to win that media war, if I can put it that way. I think we need to, you know, confront that and become the media power that we were trending towards, you know, earlier in the movement, being a community of media production. Like, we put out a lot of media, a lot of videos, and a lot of content. I think if I can go back to the last topic about priorities of the movement, it definitely overlaps with that. The need to content and media and educate and bring awareness to culture is still fundamentally critical. I think we have to win that battle, you know, and become a media power, independent media power, not, you know, attached to any corporation and become corrupted or anything like that. And so that's definitely another area overlaps with the new direction or the new kind of phase of TZM as it's been evolving to understand. Yes, we are grassroots. Yeah, you know, we operate that way, and we're fundamentally about awareness and you know, showing the possibilities of a new system, and you know, how the current systems work and how they're corrupt. But also, we're also willing to engage the existing systems to redirect them, take hold of them, and redirect them, you know, sustainably by, as Cliff was saying earlier, building financial power. You know, building our NPOs, doing co-ops. You know, the Kodo co-op that Cliff has going over there is really encouraging, and building our media power in the vein that I've been talking about. You know, and building our political power as well. By no means do I want to see anything become any kind of party system or party affiliation by any means, but to begin to insert these ideas into um, to to turn these ideas into concrete policy and legislation at some point to be voted on. And it's not like you just create a bill with like a circular city. It doesn't work that way, and they just, you know, launch it and cut the red tape and all that. We have to incrementally, you know, transition society and start. I think that starts with the voting system, but that's another conversation that goes back to the last topic. I won't rant on that, but yeah. Does anyone? I guess I'll open it up and stop rambling about the media, critical media literacy stuff, which I think will be really good for the activist community and just culturally, as we can, you know, try to make our way out of this divide that we've been like going through the past few years. Extreme divide.
I'll jump in because I'm at work and I've got to go, but such an important topic. You started out by saying you grab people by the feels. We don't follow our logic, we follow our heart. That's really, really, really important observation. I'm going to link a Victor Wooten video to you a bit later, which I was watching yesterday, which paints that beautifully. Absolutely critical points you're making there. Wholeheartedly agree. Spewing, I can't hang around. See you later, guys.
See you, Jay.
See ya.
Thank you, Jay.
I think that maybe just one point that I would like to also just throw in there and just really quickly is it overlays as well as like what yeah, I mean, we have basically no, yeah, I mean, making content and just making sure that we're basically having some kind of information that is describing what the intentions of the movement are and what we're doing. You know, that's really important. But also, like, you know, I like, for example, that we speak about like wanting to affiliate with other like groups that are also striving towards post scarcity and making a making economies or establishments based off of well-being, etc. But maybe just the only point I want to make that's that's really important is that TZM needs to have its own backbone. It needs to have its own um, it needs to have its own basis. Because I mean, for example, when people want to go back to the days when it was the activist arm of the Venus Project, for example, it didn't really have its own backbone really necessarily, or it didn't have its own core. It was very dependent off of whatever the Venus Project was going off of, and I think that was the mistake. And that especially if we want to be either promoting or be associating or like working together with all these organizations and really be pushing the work of what we find is really good and valuable that should be, you know, that should get more recognition or awareness. I think that it's just really important that also TZM has its own standards, its own boundaries, and yeah, again, just its own backbone, its own kind of authority, if you will, of standard and its aims and goals, basically. And I think that will just also make the networking and the connection with all these others much stronger. Anyway, I just want to throw that in really quickly.
Thank you, Cliff. So I'm very conscious of the time. Technically, the meeting should have ended 3 minutes ago, but I'm going to allow for 8 more minutes before we end the proper part of the minute, just so that we can touch on this a little bit more if anybody has anything to say. I will then end the meeting at 20 minutes past the hour, and then we can open the floor and have a chat. So, has anybody got anything they want to add about critical media literacy and the points that Brandon and Cliff have made?
Just lastly, that you know these corrupt corporate figures run our media and they run our politics. So we need to change that. We need to change that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is I totally agree, and I'll be doing my own video and podcast on media literacy as well for the same reasons.
Nice. And just lastly, too, what he thinks for letting it go a little bit longer. Just that the whole purpose of it isn't just be like, I don't know, just it's not to overthink things or I know people have it's already hard enough to discern information, but that is the point with it, to be able to discern information into independently too, and not have to rely on authority figures or any kind of dogma or whatever, authorities of truth that people look up to, but just to be able to assess information and formulate your own questions and form your own solutions and so on, and your own response to that media yourself, and just that if we can find a way to come together around just the most basic realities of what sustainability requires, and God, I feel like it's just the fundamentals of society. If we can get together on the same page with that and find, quote, agreement around that we can then decide on our goals, as I put in the chat, as a society, but also as a movement. So it extends to us too. It's critical that we be able to communicate and find, be on page in this, because just over the past few years, I mean, since the Trump era or whatever, it's just been so bizarre. People are so divided on some of the most seemingly obvious realities. So it's been interesting. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you for that contribution. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that? Anybody at all?
Maybe I'll just say really quickly that, as you know, the whole situation with Ukraine, for example, and that we have NATO countries that are sending in weapons into Ukraine to defend itself against the Russian invasion, and that's basically brushing a blurry line of possible war outbreak with a nuclear power, perhaps the strongest nuclear power of and other very dangerous weapons on the planet. And I mean, who has time for this? I mean, who really wants to like have this like be their future in so much fear and just and whatever. I mean, this is so absurd. I mean, for any of us that if there are people that are born like after when the Berlin Wall fell or when the Soviet Union collapsed or whatever, it would almost feel like that all the worries that we ever had to be concerned about in the future were over. But I mean, it feels like right now that we're basically like uh, we're living in times that were perhaps even scarier than those people, our parents or our grandparents or whatever, how to deal with. And so, I mean, really, in my opinion, it feels like that now. I mean, with the current circumstances, I mean, I think things like the Zeitgeist movement are, again, I mean, I think Andre made a point earlier that which is really important that like for example, just our methods of how we were active with the internet and just how the Zeitgeist movement had been uh, had just been producing whatever, had just been active on the internet, or just in general, just like how our strategy for activism have been in the past. Maybe they are a little bit obsolete, or they need some refining or whatever, but I mean the movement itself, and I mean the core points, I mean, I think they are the most needed and relevant more than ever before in history, if you ask me. I mean, that's just how I feel at the moment, and have a really strong urge to express that now.
Okay. Any final points? We've got just under 2 minutes. If not, then I'm going to wrap it up. So, last call. Okay, well, I will wrap up the meeting now then. So, thank you so much for everyone coming to this meeting. Thank you for your contributions to the discussion. It's been a fantastic meeting, and it's great to see so many people here. And I think that it's been a very useful discussion, and I look forward to talking to you on the flip side in the open discussion. So thank you so much, everyone.
And please, for anybody that would like to come and have and be a part of this meeting again, keep in mind we do have one on the next one is on the 30th of April of this month, the last Saturday of the month, and they can also come to the next one afterwards, which is every second Wednesday. So then uh, that would be the 11th of May. That we will be having these meetings regularly. Just check the calendar for the updates and meetings.
Great, thank you for mentioning that, Cliff. Right, so I don't know if you want to end the recording now, and we will open the floor and allow people to talk what they want to talk about.